All right. Now let's look at the base construction based assumptions also, which will give us a big cost related calculations, which will go as a major input. So in this session, our focus is on all the real project related stuff. So in our case, there's a lot of thing on the first and second pages where the entire construction based assumptions are provided. So in the same assumption sheet, I'll continue. I'll mail it. I'll get it mailed today itself. So one, if you are able to develop fully, more or less 50% you can easily replicate for any kind of a project. Because some, I mean, probably if you are getting into a wind-based projects or something else, small assumptions will be different, right? Probably the business is slightly different. Yeah, the headings will differ. Probably here I'll talk about construction related stuff. Constructions of probably the buses, bus bays, bus units, or whatever. That's the input parameters. Whereas when you get into a wind project, the sources of revenue will change. Otherwise, from there, building your balance sheet, income statement, cash flows, more or less remains the same itself. Yeah, but the input for that will be this. That's where the difference is. See, if I typically start off with if I typically all right, let's look at this construction assumption. So it's a lot of thing. So your team has done some research, come up with a lot of cost assumptions. So this is where sometimes you require a lot of people, the probably from the engineering team, to do the costing for this. Okay, they are talking about the basic infrastructure. So within that entire, this requires a study of that locations also. Okay, I am talking about a bus shelter, 55 acres. So generally, what is the proportion in which the basic infrastructure would occupy, or how much would be there for passenger launch, how much should be there for supporting facilities, and all this would come the moment you do a survey. The civil engineers and all, they go and do a survey of the land and all, and they are probably of some existing kind of systems at different locations, and based on that they come up with some kind of an estimate. So we are just documented that estimates, saying so from here you can even get some kind of inputs also. So you are saying, okay, basic infrastructure. So we'll put it as details and quantity. Probably we may have some quantity at some locations. The area requirement, then units in case something is there, unit cost, and probably we can put the total cost also here, which would be a computation element. So we'll see if any other columns are required. We'll simply add those columns. So we are talking about so the basic infrastructure can be developed in 13 acres. So I'll simply put basic infrastructure. This is just the data entry part. So area requirement is 13 acres. So here we'll put areas requirement. Probably we'll directly call it as acres or something. Actually speaking, yeah, sometimes instead of making it like this, we can do a formatting itself in that model. See, if I do this, I can right click on this. This is again a very hectic effort, but it can be slightly better also. I can right click on this 13, format cells, and I can do it into the custom format, right? And I can put it as, see, if I want it more as numbers, so I'll put it as 0.00 kind of a format. 0.00 is more like a two items after the decimal. And I'll put it as acres inside the quotes. So format wise, by default, even if I enter 3 there, it will come as 3 acres. You see, it comes out as 13 acres. Even if, so that acres will always be there. Just I need to enter the number. So that sometimes you can even make it look more and more user friendly by changing the formats like this. Now here also, let's say here 55, instead of saying 55 here and acres here. See, if I here itself write 55 acres, I cannot actually do the calculations. I mean, it cannot do the multiplications or any of the things. So one way is, okay, you format it, which will contain that custom format where whatever is the name you have entered, whatever is the, so you can write as many formats as you want. So that's an extra effort, but it is, I mean, it can make the things look better. So you will still enter the number as 55 only. You will not enter it as 55 acres. You will still enter it as 55 only, but it will display to you as 55 acres. And you can still use it for your calculation purposes. If you write it as 55 acres, you cannot do any calculation on that. Right? So this is one way sometimes people do this kind of formatting. Every cell probably may require a separate, let's say here 150. We are saying per acre. Even that also I'll write it as, I'll put a format to it. So this is again an extra effort. Okay, I'll put 0.00 and here I'll put it as per acre. So every time I have to go with this kind of a formatting. Probably it may have to be customizedly done for every cell also. Right? So sometimes it may work, especially when we have different types of units. Okay, let's see that. So basic infrastructure, I'm saying I'm going to build it in this much. And for that he is saying, okay, road is one of the basic infrastructure. So 3 kilometers is what they are saying. And this 3 kilometers is going to cost me 8.5 crores. So I'll say it as 850 lakhs. So this 3 also probably I may think of formatting it as 3 kilometers. Again, you can just look at it. So just like the way you mention it, you will get the display. You can't enter it as 3 kms. You still enter it as 3 itself. If you enter it as 3 kms as a data, then you cannot do any formulas on it. So you enter it as a number itself, but format it like that. Right? Okay, then we are talking of a road, water and sewage. Probably the inputs for it could be done by some other teams as a part of how much it could cost. So they are saying it's around 4.7 crores. So 470 lakhs I am directly putting. Power related infrastructure. 50 lakhs. Power backup. This is just the data entry part. 2.4 crores, which is coming out to 240 lakhs. Yeah. Land development cost. They are saying 10 lakh per acre. So this is 10 lakhs per unit. And here we are calling it as, probably here I'll point it to this location itself. Because the total thing is 55 acres for me. And it is costing me 10 lakh per acre. So my total land development cost is coming out to this number into this number. So overall it is costing me some 550 lakhs here. So the basic infrastructure cost. So these are what we are calling it as a basic infrastructure. Land. So probably this can even be input for you if you are developing something else. See, need not be a kind of this. Probably you may be developing some township or something. May not be a bus project. You may be developing some kind of a township or something. All these things are very much required even for building of your township. Roads, infrastructure wise, water, sewage. So you can very well see how much thing will cost how much, and based on this also sometimes we take the estimates. Right. So I'll call it as total basic infrastructure. So where I'll do a summing of all these five. So the basic infrastructure is costing me this much as a project cost. The basic infrastructure is costing me 21 crores to do the up to this area. Then the next part they are talking about the bus terminal area to be built in 7 acres. So these are part of a specifications itself. So these are the things that are required. So the bus terminal area is what another thing we are looking at. So this also we can go with the same mechanism, quantity, area requirement, unit cost kind of thing. So there are some inputs which can directly be used. So bus bay units for intercity buses. So where the buses typically stay. So they are trying to build 200 such, places where local buses come and go for boarding and alighting kind of stuff. So they are providing 200 such locations, and each one is having a 450 SFT kind of an area. Sorry, unit area is 450 SFT. 450 is the unit area, and unit cost is 300 per SFT. So even these things you can very well format. So this I'll call it as per SFT or SFT. So I'll put a custom. If it is always an integer, I'll put it as this much SFT. So this says me 450 SFT to make the things look much better. So this is always a format of per SFT. Per SFT. So I say 300 per SFT. The same thing we can use wherever SFT is there and per SFT is there. So now I can think about the cost that is typically incurred for it. Right. So this is in terms of SFT. This is per SFT. And these are the number of units I am building. So the total cost is coming out to this multiplied by this multiplied by this. Whereas, yeah, this is not in lakhs. So I have to convert it into lakhs. So I'll divide this number by 10 to the power of 5. So this says around 270 lakhs. Right? I'll multiply these three. But because none of these is in lakhs, these are all in rupees, I'm converting into lakhs by dividing by 1 lakh. 10 to the power of 5 is 1 lakh. So, okay, the bus bay unit intercity are going to cost me like that. So, the same thing I can do for others. So, we'll see that bus bay units. I think this part we can go slightly faster. Wherever required, we can look at it. Bus bay unit for city buses. So, they are talking of 30 units per city buses because they come and go quite frequently. Again, each bay unit is the same 450 SFT. And the construction cost is going to be 300 per SFT because it's the same as your intercity buses itself. Basically, where buses come and where you board and alight. So they are building 200. So it's a big complex itself that way. 200 buses, 200 platforms kind of stuff. So we'll typically go for the same custom. So we can, or once you have created one format, you can do that paste specials also, or paste format. So I can do a format pasting to this. So probably once we are done with all, wherever the SFT part is there, we'll directly do that format painting. Whereas this calculation I can simply drag. So this is going to cost me almost 40 and a half lakhs for intercity buses. Then similarly passenger lobby, they are looking at one unit with almost 1 lakh SFT. 1 lakh SFT, and it is going to cost you 1000 rupees per SFT. So this is going to cost you close to 1000 lakhs or 10 crores. Passenger lobby is going to cost you around 10 crores. And the bus fingers, there are 5 such with 25,000 SFT and 800 per SFT. Again, all these you can simply put the same logic. This is also going to cost you almost 1000 lakhs. Then commercial retail, 1 unit with a 5000 SFT. Okay, this they did not give the unit cost, which means sometimes they are ready to allocate the space, but they may give it to someone else for development. See, here they are not putting up the cost. So some of the things can very well be like that also. You see, everything you may not develop, right? Some commercial space, commercial shops or something, you will give it for some commercial development there. So they will develop it, but they will pay you something on a regular rental basis or something for utilization of that space. So 5000 SFT, you just want to give it for that kind of commercial there, right? So for probably for some shops or something which you are not developing and maintaining, only the space you will give it to someone, and they will construct it and they'll do it at their own. And similarly, you are talking about bus operators office spaces. In that entire area, we are talking of all these kind of things. Even here if we see, they are trying to build 25 such office spaces, each with 400 SFT. But again, they are not incurring the cost for it. They'll give it to someone to develop it. So that's where they did not put as a part of that company's cost. Similarly, but bank extension counters, they are going with 3 in that entire area, 3 banks, each with 1500 SFT, and they are going to develop. So it is costing them some 8,800 rupees per SFT as a construction cost. So this is costing this much. Now probably it all depends. Now if they want to develop these two also, now that's where as a construction company or as a partner in the PPP project, you may think of whether you would like to develop this or you would like to outsource it, right? Let's say any private partner in this, they may think, okay, they are ready. In this case, at least they are ready to operate the bank extension counters themselves or develop them, maintain them themselves. In some other case, probably for bus operators and all, I'll just give the space for them. So the developing, probably they may put their own shelters or something, their own tents or whatever it is, their own mechanisms, but you are not developing the space and giving it to them. But in case you think of developing and giving it, probably you will again charge something more from them. It could be a rental in that form. And so these are what you are talking of in the ground floor. And similarly, in the first floor, you are even talking about some driver amenities, where you are talking of 1,000 beds for drivers, and each is having a space of 20 SFT, just a space of a bed, 6 by or whatever, 3 by 6 kind of bed, 18 SFT. So some extra space, so 20 SFT. And you are talking of developing it with a 1,000 per SFT kind of a space. So this is costing you almost some 200, almost 200 lakhs or 2 crores is what it is costing you, developing the driver amenities. Then budget hotel with almost 100 rooms. Now you need to see whether you can get the revenue out of all these or not. Each room with a 250 SFT you are developing, and 800. So now you really need to see how much revenue can you get in all these things. Right? You are building a budget hotel with 100 beds. Oh, you are developing it at 1400 per SFT. Probably because it's a hotel, some extra features and all into that, which is costing you slightly more in terms of your construction cost. Then there are dormitories, which can accommodate up to 500 beds, each with a 20 SFT space. Again, 800 per SFT is the usage. Okay. Then food court, one food court with 5000 SFT, and you are developing it with 1000 rupees per SFT. So this is the cost, 50 lakhs. Then primary health center. Okay, this is also something the PPP company only is maintaining. One primary health center with 3000 SFT space, developing it at 1200 per SFT, which is costing you this much. And administrative offices. You are developing 5 such administrative offices in a 300 SFT space at 800 per SFT. So these are the things you are planning to develop. So you are doing a simple cost estimate of all these things in the bus terminal area. Now, first thing that may be required to understand is, okay, there are a couple of things which you have not got into in the development. You want to give it to someone else. So probably at a later date, if you want to get into the development of this, what could be the cost and the revenues which you may get out of them? Right? So at least the cost now. So I'll put it as total bus terminal area cost. Bus terminal area cost is coming out to the sum of all these things. So it's costing me almost 30 crores. 30.74 crores is what it is costing me exclusively for the bus terminal area. Then we are looking at parking, because all these again will have some revenue assumptions. Each of these things, because probably if I'm developing a bus bay unit, I may collect some revenue. So now I need to think of what are the sources of generating revenue. Out of all these things, what are the sources of generating revenue? Probably I am building a budget hotel. How much should I charge? Right? So all these will become assumptions. So I am assuming that probably I may charge this much from the hotel stay because I am the operating. It's not just constructing and giving it to the other party. I am operating it. So the profitability is exclusively built into it. Right? So that's where my assumption should be easily modelable. Right? For all these, probably, yeah, for driver amenities, every time the driver comes in there or uses that, I may charge him on a monthly basis or I may charge probably per visit. So, or dormitories, whatever are there. Now, there may be an occupancy rate associated with them. They may not be 100% occupied every day. So, my revenue model will completely go based on what all I am trying to build and where all I can charge. Right? So, that's where the complexity builds up into the project. And similarly, let's say the parking. I am trying to develop the parking area also because the whole is 55 acres of land. Till now, we have utilized. See, in the terminal area, we are only utilizing 7 acres. Now we need to see whether all this will fit into the 7 acres of land or not. If I just add up all this just to test out, if I add up all this, right, just to see whether 7 acres is sufficient enough or more or less. If I simply add up, I can add up, multiply all these and with this and add up. That is what will give me the total area. Because each one is 450 SFT. And like that, there are 200 such bay units. Similarly, each one is 5000 SFT with one unit. Our bank extension counter, each one is with 1500 SFT. There are 3 such counters. So if I want to compute the total space in terms of SFT, so the total space probably we can put some basic. It's not a model, but we are just trying to compute whether it is sufficient or not. I'll use a simple sum product function which will multiply one by one and add up all of them. So I am saying sum product of all these numbers, comma, all these numbers. So this will tell me the total area that I am occupying for all these. So that is saying around 4,12,000 SFT is what I am occupying. And probably if I go floor wise, this is 2 floors. So floor wise, on an average, it is occupying around 2 lakhs SFT. Now, is 7 acres equal to 2 lakhs SFT or not? Probably I need to have some conversion between acres and SFTs. Acres to SFT conversion or something like that. So that is where I can I can find out the conversion where I will put it as a part of the assumption sheet again. The conversion parameters. I want to put up the conversion parameters. I'll put some more assumptions here. Probably in some cases we are using SFT, in some cases we are using acres. So different terms are there. So that's where we'll put them also as some assumptions. Conversion assumptions. So acres to square yards, if I have, it is 4840.051. Acres to square meters, it is 4046.9. And square meters to square foot, it is 10.76. So just the conversion between these. So that's where now I need to find out if this much of square feet is what it requires per floor. How much of acres? Right? These are not percentages. These are actually not percentages. So I'll just convert them into numbers. Oh, it comes out as 4840.051, 4046.9, and 10.76. These are the numbers. So now when I want to convert, so let's say 1 acre, I want to convert it into square meters. So it is coming out as, so these many are 1 acre. I want to convert it into square meters. It is 4046.9 square meters. And square meter to square feet, it is 10.76. So I can very well say 1 acre is equal to these many square feet. Just the multiplication of these two, right, will give me 1 acre equal to these many square feet. 1 acre equal to 43,544 square feet. Right? And now my space is 2 lakh square feet. So if I want to convert it into acres, I'll divide this by this number. Right? This is 1 acre equal to these many square feet. Or these many square feet is equal to 1 acre. But my total requirement is, or my total building area is, terminal area is 2 lakh SFT, which is getting converted into 4.73 acres. Now land wise I have 7 acres. So because we need to keep some spaces and all cannot be tightly packed kind of thing. So within 7 acres I can comfortably build, because the built up area is around 4.73 acres. Whereas the land I am looking at around 7 acres, which is more than sufficient for building this. Okay. This one. These are directly taken. So I want to convert the acres into square feet. So acres into square meters is this much. Square meters into square feet is this much. So when I multiply these two numbers, acre into square feet is getting converted. 1 acre is equal to these many square feet. Now as a part of our requirement, the total area in which the bus terminal is built, it is coming out to 2 lakhs 6,000 SFT. So based on that, it is coming out as 4.73 acres. Whereas we have earmarked 7 acres for that. So more sufficient in terms of building. I mean, it's not tightly packed, or sometimes if it goes more, my assumptions are wrong. Or I can say I cannot build all these things in that space. Either I require some more acres of land, or probably I may have to cut down on the facilities. Just again as a part of the initial feasibility analysis. So we have used up 20 acres till now, 13 acres for the infrastructure and 7 acres for the bus terminal. Then similarly, the next part is talking about the parking. For parking, we are saying 8 acres of land we are planning to use. For parking, we are planning to use 8 acres of land. Okay, another usage of the space. You are developing it in 8 acres, out of which you would like to use 2 acres for two-wheeler parking. Okay, two-wheeler parking, 2 acres. 2 acres for four-wheeler parking. Okay. And remaining 4 acres for hired vehicle parking. So probably from these also you can generate some kind of revenues. Hired vehicle parking you are building in an area of 4 acres. Okay, you expect that this parking can accommodate 200 cars. Four-wheeler parking can accommodate 200 cars. 2000 two-wheelers. So you can generate revenue out of all these. And 100 hired vehicles, cars, buses or whatever it is. Taxis, buses, whatever, autos. So you are talking of that much of space. Okay, so 8 acres are utilized. So you are just developing that space. And you also plan to build a parking for idle buses. Okay, this is the general parking. And we are also talking about parking for idle buses. 15 acres of land which can accommodate up to 1000 buses. All the parking area developed can cost you 250 per SFT, because probably you are just putting a minimum thing, probably some drawing, some lines or something for the parking. You are not spending anything in that area to develop the parking. So everything is costing you only 250 per SFT. All these are costing you 250 per SFT. Yeah, now these are in 2 acres, whereas the cost is in SFT. So probably this also you convert the acres into SFT, where we have already used the formula. So this number I'll multiply it with this conversion, acres into SFT conversion. Acres into square meters, probably we can use one more for directly SFT. So acres into SFT is what I am using. So 2 acres means this much of SFT. Like this I am using for all. So this much of SFT, each SFT is costing me 250 rupees. So my parking area development cost is costing me this much times this much. Probably this also I need to divide by 10 to the power of 5. Almost 217 lakhs, 2 crores it is costing me just to develop the two-wheeler parking. And the same way, another 16 crores for parking for idle buses and 4 crores for developing the four-wheeler parking or hired vehicle parking. So these are the costs that are coming up for my parking. So I can very well put up as total parking costs. Now you see the project is going costly and costly. Unless you generate that much of revenues. So I am adding up all these things. My parking costs are coming out to 25 crores. So I have to generate a revenue worth at least 25 crores out of the parking. Of course, this is over a 30-year, but still there is a time value associated. Right? So how much I charge and all will come from that fact. That's where today you see a lot of parking charges wherever you go. You are able to develop until here. I'll take a small pause. All right. Then a few more things. They are also, so the whole usage wise, 15 acres here, 8 acres here, 23 and 730, 43 acres are used up till now. Then we are also talking about support facilities in the remaining 12 acres. So that's how the entire usage is done. As a part of the support facilities, they are even talking about 2 acres for 3 petrol pumps, 3 petrol pumps in an area. 3 petrol pumps. Overall 2 acres. No, or for each one. No. Overall 3 acres. No, 2 acres. Overall 2 acres, not per person. Overall 2 acres. And so you are giving it for development. So you are not developing them. Right? So it may not cost anything for you there. You are just outsourcing that. Petrol pumps. Okay, another 4 acres for 10 auto service centers. So overall 4 acres you are giving for them. You also plan to develop 10 auto spare part shops. So there are 10 such auto spare part shops, and each of 400 SFT at 1000 per SFT. So this is costing you almost some 40 lakhs, and for and 30 office spaces of 400 SFT each at no auto spare part shops 400 SFT each at 800 per SFT, and 30 office spaces for travel operators. You are talking of some 30 office spaces for travel operators, 400 SFT each at 1000 per SFT. So there's an extra cost of another 120 lakhs. Okay, another 1 acre of land would be used for electric substation. So you are giving again 1 acre of land for that. And okay, and power transmission. You also need to develop a fire station. You are developing the fire station also in 200 SFT, in 2000 SFT. One unit at 2000 SFT at 800 per SFT. So this is what is your total cost. So you are not developing the petrol pumps, you are not developing the auto service centers, and you are not even developing the electric substation. So you are giving it to someone, you are just giving the real estate space for them, because you are paying the lease for the entire 55 acres. Some of them you are developing and you will get rentals out of your, so which means you will incur the maintenance costs also for them, because it's your development. And for some of them probably you are just giving the real estate space, like petrol pumps. 2 acres you want to give for petrol pumps. Now depending on how much they may have to pay you probably on a monthly rental basis. They'll set up their own pumps and everything, but they'll pay some rental to you. So there is a source of revenue for the real estate space which you are giving to them. So this is how you are expensing all your stuff. So I think once we add these up, so the total support facilities. So with this, I think our total costs will be over. So these are our total costs. Okay. Yeah, I think there is one correction to this case. The data is not written. The electric substation also you are developing at 6 crores. Electric substation you are developing at 6 crores altogether. So just will make the correction to the case. So electric substation we are developing ourselves at 6 crores. Okay, so now based on this, we are arriving at our initial estimate of. So we are developing in that the basic infrastructure, the bus terminal area, the parking area, the parking for idle buses, and the complete support facilities. So that 55 acres of land we are using like this. Because if we look at this, the total land usage, all the 55 acres is used up. 12 acres for support, 15 for parking for idle. Now with this. Now based on this, actually you can plan out if some other bus project has to be planned now. Let's say instead of this, some other small bus project. Today there are so many such bus projects. Interstate bus terminus, almost every state is planning for these things. Right? The other day I have seen one project starting off for Meerut in UP. Right? Again, they are planning in almost 30 acres of land, a similar kind of a project. So this is a plan again for one of the cities. Right? So almost these are continuous kind of projects, this kind of stuff. And if you really want some numbers there, you can very well develop it in this proportion. Okay, basic infrastructure, 13 out of 55. So almost this much percentage I have to earmark. So you can get a clear-cut breakup of all this stuff. If the area is 30 acres or something, how much to each of these things. So you can very well plan out and proportionately you can distribute and things can be much more easier. Okay, so the total cost till date, there's still more complexity, but we'll just finish the total cost as of now. Total cost for development is coming out to this number, basic infrastructure cost plus the bus terminal area cost, parking, and even the support facilities. Okay. So the total cost is come out to almost 85 crores. Up to here, the total project cost has come out to 85 crores. Now, yeah, this is over a 2-year period. This is where my problem actually starts. Over a 2-year period, now we are considering that the inflation will exist. So the first year cost will be different. So first year cost probably inflation may not be there because we are incurring the costs in this year itself. But when I move to the next year, this is the total cost which I have put as of today's prices. But there will be definitely be an inflation. Into 5% only for the second year's part. No, completion is 40-60. Completion, I am estimating 40% completion in the first year and 60% in the second year. So for 40% I will not put the inflation. For the remaining 60% I will put the inflation. Right? So cost wise, now I will start breaking up year wise. Right? So that is where the whole the next. So this is the initial estimate. Now on that initial estimate, I will make the necessary modifications, and that will add up to the final estimate. Okay. So the basic infrastructure cost is that much, and all these things the cost is this much. Did I do some double counting somewhere? This is in 15 acres. Okay. So this is in 15 acres space. Just let all of you got the same number, right? 2160, 3074, 2503, and 768. Okay, fair enough. All are thousand. Yeah. So almost 8 and okay. The next part, even before I get into the distribution of the cost, there is also saying that the pre-operative cost is 10% of the total construction cost. The initial, probably the documentations, and before I start off with the actual construction activity itself, I am assuming some kind of getting permissions or various stuff regarding that. That is what we typically put it as a pre-operative cost. So we are saying, so pre-operative cost, almost we are saying it as 10% of the total cost. So from there we can even put total cost post total cost after the pre-operation cost, which is what I am calling it as the total construction costs, including the pre-operations. This is what will come out to me as this number multiplied by 1 plus this number, which is 10% more. So my total construction cost will come out to almost 93 crores. In this case, my total construction cost comes out to 93 crores. Now that has to be distributed between year 1 and year 2. So that is where now there will be a lot of things associated with year 1 and year 2. So that is where I would typically focus for creating my finance sheet. Finance sheet I'll create for the 2 years of the construction period, because there are a lot of things now. In the others we are getting into a lot of other stuff. So there apart from the construction, if I have to finally arrive at my total project cost, I'll have to incorporate a various other costs also into it. So that is where I'll create one more new sheet, which I'll call as a financing sheet, more relating to the financing, probably interest during construction and all. I'll bring it into this sheet. I'll bring it into the financing sheet, where here, okay, I'll try to take the year number. Again, the same thing, whatever we have taken in the earlier case. Probably I'll call it as year number, or I can reuse it from there directly so that there is a consistency. So I'll use equal to, and I'll point to this year number, and again the same dragging I can do, or probably because I need one heading area, I'll put it from the second column. So up to 33 it shows. That consistency is what I'll maintain. Year number, and even this I'll drag a bit down, which I'll give me the year, and even this I'll drag it to this side, which will give me to up to 2044. Though for this I may need only up to just 2 years of construction, but just to maintain the consistency, I'll put up to there. Okay, so here we have the year and the year number. So we'll get into the construction costs, the total construction costs. So all the financing part we'll do in this, including the borrowing, interest and all, will develop here. And whatever the costs that are associated, I'll try to add up to that, which will tell me at the end of the period that this is my total construction costs, right? So now as a part of the financing, the first thing I am looking at the total construction cost initial. So I'll put it as total construction cost. Yeah, this is where I'll break it into 40% and 60%. Right? Year wise, I am doing a breakup, and overall, probably I can add it up. So we'll do an year wise stuff. So I'll simply do it for the first year. I am taking it as equal to whatever the base calculations we got, or whatever the assumption sheet. This is our total construction cost, right? That I am multiplying with 40%, because no inflation for the first year. During that year, I am taking it to be equivalent to this much. So that happens to be my construction cost for the first year. Whereas in the second year, or probably to make the formula even more consistent, I'll apply the inflation there also. But so see, every year that inflation gets compounded. So as a logic, it is coming out as construction cost into 40% first year into 1.05 to the power 0, which is nothing but 1. Whereas for the second one, I'll write it as, for second year, I'll write it as 1.05 to the power 1. Right? So which means this I can also model it as whatever the year number minus 1. This exponent, I'll directly make it as year numbers minus 1. Which means, because the same format I can use even if it has to be multiplied for 20 years. 1.05 to the power 19. Right? So because of that, I can use this kind of a logic directly to make the formula consistent across. So what I'll simply do is, here instead of simply just multiplying these two, I'll also multiply it with 1 plus whatever we have made as an inflation based assumption. This is what we called as average inflation. I am putting dollars for all. To the power year number minus 1. So the year number is coming out at this location. This is the year number minus 1. So at all these places I am putting my dollars, because I am pulling from that other location. I don't want their generic locations to be impacted. Some 3742. Okay. So this is, see, here this is the total construction cost, whatever we got, 9,000 odd, multiplied by 40% multiplied by 1 plus the inflation rate 5% to the power this minus 1. So which means all no inflation in the first year. Here I don't need this dollar for B7. Yeah, because that 40% should become 60% for the next year. So I'll not use this dollar here. So this comes to almost 37 crores in the first year. And because I have it only for 2 years, even if I put for other years, it will show me zero itself. So rather than that, I can, or if it comes out as zero, again I may write a rule saying if it comes out as zero, write it as blank. Right. So for the first year, the construction cost is this much. So even the loan wise, see the reason why we are doing this analysis is even the loan, I'll take it in this format. Depending on how much will it cost for me in each of the years, my first year loan I'll take only 3,742 crores. Of course, there is something more to add to it, but this is what is the loan, the input driver for the loan. Though there is a drawdown period of 2 years and I'll draw it on a quarterly basis. So I can very well based on these numbers. Okay, this is the only construction cost. But apart from that, there are a lot more things. As the case is talking of, not just your construction costs, it is saying stamp duty is there. So on the top of it, there are a lot more costs which you are incurring. Right? So the case as a part of the others, it is saying stamp duty 1 is there. Yeah, as a part of the other financing costs, they are talking of all these costs in the case. There is a stamp duty 1, stamp duty 2, some upfront premium the developer is paying, right? And is also talking about registration charges, insurance costs, some financing costs and all. So they are giving some kind of numbers relating to that. So probably even those numbers I'll put them as a part of the assumption sheet itself. Right? Most of the things, if they are there as a part of the assumptions, I can very well change them. Right? So I'll say financing related assumptions or something. or other assumptions, where we are talking of stamp duty 1, it says 0.8% of the total lease rentals. Okay, so 0.8% of the total lease rentals or 5% of the land value, whichever is higher. Right? So these two I'll format it in that way. 0.8%. I'll create a format saying 0.8% of total lease rentals. I'll just call this as a part of the formatting itself. So this will show me as 0.8% of the total lease rentals or 5% of the land value. I'll format this also as a part of the custom of land value, just to make things slightly usable. So as a part of the assumptions, I am saying this numbers 0.8% of the total lease rentals. So we have computed the total lease rentals already. So we have to see what should be the stamp duty 1, and is saying whichever is higher. Then he is saying stamp duty 2 is 5% on the upfront premium to be paid by the developer. Developer is paying an upfront premium of 30 crores. So upfront premium is directly mentioned as 30 crores or 3000 lakhs. So based on that, stamp duty 2 is 5% of that upfront premium. Then registration charges are levied at 0.5%. So the registration charges are coming out as 0.5% of the average annual lease rentals. Right, even this also I can format. So because just to represent, I mean, this is not a mandatory part. Even if you just write 0.5%, that is fine. Just to make the things look better, I'll write it as of average lease rentals, so that someone writes it or looks at it, becomes easier for them to understand. Though there is, I mean, it takes a lot of space and all, but just to make things, here I am still entering it as 0.5% itself, but format is more like that, so that I can easily correlate it. Okay, registration charges are that much. Insurance premium, so I'll say insurance premium is 1% of the construction cost of that year. So this is where again finding out the construction cost will really help me out, because the insurance premium is determined based on that construction cost, and the financing cost for the year is 1.5% of the total debt for that year. So that's where again, out of this construction cost, 60% is debt and 40% is equity for each of the years, right? So finance, so that's where our complexity again comes. The financing cost is coming out to almost 1.5%. So based on these assumptions, I have to develop my total non-construction costs now. Construction costs we have completely developed based on basic infrastructure, bus areas and all that stuff. But based on this, there is a lot of addendum that is adding up to my total cost. Apart from The real construction costs, there are a lot of registration charges, upfront premiums, insurance, lot of things which are not a part of the direct construction. And even the interest and all, they are not a part of the direct construction stuff. Right? So those things also we add up. And those things also we add up. And that is what will cost the total project. Fine. I mean the construction part and the financing aspect. These two put together, the infrastructure part plus all the supporting parts like stamp duties, upfront premiums, registrations, insurance, all these things also will add up. And financing cost is more like even for raising a loan, right? Even for raising a loan, there is a cost incurred on the raising of that loan itself. Some kind of administrative activities in terms of bond papers or whatever. So there is a lot of other administrative activity associated with the taking of that loan itself. That is what we are calling as a part of the financing cost. It's not a part of the interest. Interest is still separate. Just to take that financing, whatever are required in terms of administrative activities or whatever that are required, that is what we are calling it around 1.5% of the total debt amount which you are taking for that period. Now, using this, we have to model what are our total financing costs. We just started off with that. So first year only the construction costs we just escalated, right, based on inflation. This is actually a construction cost which we got in the previous sheet, but the only thing is this number is slightly higher. So probably just to make things even more better, we can update our assumption sheet again. Right, I'll add few more rows here. Just saying escalated construction costs or inflation adjusted construction costs. Construction costs post inflation. Construction costs post inflation. So this will come out as the sum of those two for me. Right, in first year cost, second year cost. First year is without inflation, second year is with inflation. So I'll get into this financing sheet, add these two things. This is what will directly become. So you see, this has become 9,637 lakhs, whereas earlier it was 9,356 lakhs. Because the second year's costs are associated with an inflation. So that cost we are taken care of. So the construction cost has actually gone up by a little extent because of that extra inflation that we are putting into it. Right?